Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started now. This is Ian Blackburn with Zoom into Wine. I am very happy to be here tonight tasting wines with you, and we're going to have a really good time taking a look at what's happening in Santa Barbara wine country. Make sure everyone's getting online okay and joining me. If you have a chance to come on video with me, you could be part of the audience, ask questions. We are live on Facebook as well, but only those that are inside of the Zoom get to participate, and I'm really happy to have you. How's Lisa Tess doing? All right?
Oh, I'm going to be just lovely. But my computer and water met yesterday afternoon, which was not a good thing.
Uh-oh.
I've had a really just horrific 24 hours.
Crazy.
Including all my tax documents that were also got wet. So let's just make it really clear.
That's no fun.
So yes, I sent you a message on something else. I'm begging on something else.
All right, I'll look into that. All right, we're going to get started. We got 5 wines to cover tonight, and I'm hoping that we'll have a special guest join us in a little bit. But let's take a look at what the evening has entailed for us. We're going to be taking a look at Santa Barbara wine country and kind of going over things. I'm expecting Michael Larner to be joining us shortly, hopefully. Let me make sure he remembers. I'm guilty. I just had a radio appearance the other night. 6:30, I got to the Dodger game at 6 o'clock. I said, I'll set my alarm. I didn't, and I totally forgot about it. And I missed the radio show. Not good. So I'm just going to send Michael a little note, make sure he's okay. And there we go.
So baseball season has started?
It was a preseason game.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we were able to watch the Dodgers and Angels play.
Awesome.
Yeah. Dodger Stadium's looking beautiful. They've made an amazing number of improvements to the park. You can now walk around the entire park in a circle. And the outfield area has got all the best restaurants out there now. So it's really pretty staggering how many improvements they've put in place, and they made it a little more kid-friendly, and it's pretty fascinating. Well, we're going to get started now, and maybe Michael will join us at some point. Otherwise, my karma may be catching up with me, and I'll be filling in for him. So we're going to be talking about a number of different great Santa Barbara productions, and we start off with Côtière tonight, which I'm going to take you into my little slideshow. And Côtière has been in my world since we started the Merchant of Wine. I've been looking for wines like this. This is a smaller producer, doesn't have a ton of distribution out there, and really a good producer. This is Kevin. Kevin Law is the winemaker. He's been very active in making great Santa Barbara wines for a long time, and has, under his tutelage, some brands had some great success. But this is his own brand, and kind of like what do they call it? The cobbler's daughter always has the worst shoes in the village, or something like that. I think he's very busy with a lot of other things, and I think he's put together just a spectacular wine that he barely has any time to market and get out there. But I'm very happy to be one of his loudest spokespersons. I don't think I've ever sold this wine and heard anything but, yeah, that's really good for the money. It's just a great value. And that's what we've got in our glass right now. This is the Côtière Santa Barbara Cuvée is what we're we're showing off. And it's a blend of Murmur Vineyard and I believe it's La Recagnata. It spends some time in wood, and it's got a nice amount of richness and roundness to it. And it really is a beautiful wine offering. Now, Santa Barbara is often misunderstood because of the way it's set up. It's one of the only appellations in the state of California where the mountain ranges run east to west instead of north to south. So really channeling in the winds into Santa Maria and Santa Rita Hills, and kind of brings the wind right in, unfettered from the ocean. That's why it stays so cool, and the growing seasons are so different. And we get this ripeness with high acidity. And so I love Santa Barbara wines. We visit Santa Barbara often. It's our local wine region. There's no doubt. There's probably 300 different wineries in Santa Barbara, and it's definitely a continuing to change. And we'll catch up on some of that a little bit more in a moment. Let's go now, and if you haven't tasted, Lisa, I don't know if you're tasting. I see toe. Does it say toe? Is that Toe? Is that you? What does that say? Toe, do you have the wines today?
Yes, I do.
All right. Is that your name, Toe?
That's my nickname, and so somehow I got a new laptop, and I got a new name too, I guess.
Well, good to have you on the Zoom, Toe. What's your real name?
Tranto.
Doug.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
nice to have you. All right. Well, did you have the first one in your glass? Did that make you happy?
Yes, it's very interesting. I like it a lot.
Good. Côtière. That's Santa Barbara Cuvée. Now we're going to move into our Pinot Noir tonight, wine number 2. I'll take us. Hopefully, you guys can you see the slideshow okay? I don't know if you've ever tasted with D'Alfonso Curran, but it is like visiting all the animals and then some. They're just fantastic, crazy, fun folks. I think the picture's perfect. Chris Curran worked for Sea Smoke for a number of years, and Bruno D'Alfonso was at Sanford for a long time, and they have some really great vineyards they're working with here. And this Pinot Noir is aged 14 months in French oak barrel. The current release is 2018, 100% destemmed, open top fermenter. It's really beautifully spiced. It's not trying to be over extracted. I love the color, the richness, the roundness, the creaminess, the texture. Really a people-pleasing Pinot Noir at its price point, and I think it's really over-delivers. It's about $28.95. The Chardonnay, by the way, around $22.95 for the Côtière Chardonnay.
Does this open up a little bit? It's got a bit of a bite.
It's spicy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's right out of the bottle. It's pretty round and creamy, but did you just pulled it out of the decanter?
Just poured it. Yep.
Yeah, because this is the bottle I poured from into your decanters, but I poured them on Monday, so my bottle's been open for 2 days, and it should be in really good shape. I think
Spicy is a good word for it. It's got a different, yeah.
Very brown spice, and
Mm-hmm.
and very Santa Rita Hills in that way too, because you get a lot of those Santa Maria barbecue spices like clove and cardamom and different things that you might find in a Santa Maria barbecue. We'll move into wine number 3. We're moving very quickly tonight because we got a lot to cover. And our special guest has arrived on our Zoom, Mr. Michael Larner. How is Michael?
Great. Thanks for asking. Hi, everybody.
Hey, buddy. We're going to taste your wine now and learn a little bit about it. But why don't I let you tell people about it?
You bet. So I make 2 blends from the estate in a given vintage. This is the Elemental, which is our classic blend that we do as wine. We blend it at 2 years of aging. The percentage of fruit will vary from vintage to vintage. This particular one you have in your glass, being the 2018, is 53% Grenache, 40% Syrah, and 7% Mourvedre. So the idea here is this blend is something that we always want to keep Grenache the dominant player because it builds this backbone of velvet texture in the wine. The Syrah comes in to do what Grenache can't do, which is give dark color, give a little bit more of that pepper spice. And the Mourvedre also is another one of these spice components to sort of add in there, a little sort of lignin, sort of nice little spice you get on the end of the wine. So,
how's everything in Santa Barbara this year going, Michael?
so far, pretty swimmingly. We got a late rain here, and April showers, right? So cover crop is finishing off. The bud break's going pretty good. So we're hoping that we'll have a nice, consistent growing season. If you add up all the rain units from this year, we're still in deficit. But the canopies hopefully are going to rebound with the late rain that we got as it kind of leaches out some of those salts it builds up.
In the picture, that's your mom and your sister, who's Monica Larner, writer for Robert Parker. Right? And
yes,
and that's pretty cool. And often, why your wine doesn't get a lot of reviews is that because your family's in the review business, it's often kept out of
yeah, I kind of know the inner workings of it all, right? No, we don't even make that much wine. Our total annual case production on the estate's about 1,400 cases. So the scoring system is really beneficial if you're heavy into distribution, and we're not. We do 90% of our wines directly through like wine club, allocation list, these kind of things. So it's more beneficial for us to look at scores if we were to do something much more mainstream in the market, which we're not doing at this moment. So, but don't forget in the picture my lovely, talented wife, Christina, as well, who has a great retail shop in Los Olivos and is my assistant winemaker, so I can't not plug her. So,
absolutely right. I was actually digging into my Google to try to find. That's not your corner store.
No.
But you have
Michael, I always go to your tasting room there in Los Olivos, but do you have one at the vineyard now? Are you guys set up for that?
We're getting closer. We have zoning clearance. We're moving forward on construction. So it's imminent. I would say probably in the next year or two, we're looking at getting something open on the actual property. So people will still continue the store. Because my wife does such a wonderful job with the retail and getting people's needs when they come into Los Olivos, and we'll have a little satellite tasting there as well. But the property shall at some point open up to the public, and I can't give you an exact date because we're still working on that.
That's great though. I'm glad it's finally coming to fruition.
Yes, yeah, it's only taken up 10 years.
Well, yeah, and your wife's an amazing artist, and people that I've sent to the little corner store there in Los Olivos, right next to the flagpole. It's just an iconic location, and you guys have a lot of cool stuff in the store. Great place to taste wine and to be able to catch up with the family.
You bet.
Yeah, get a sandwich next door and a glass of wine. It's the best.
That's a good combo.
So a little bit about the vinification on this wine. Everything is kept separate the entire duration of the fermentation, aging process. And then at the 2-year mark, I bring in those lovely folks in the picture who compliment me and we taste everything together. And we basically classify how those wines are going to shape, whether they're standalone versions like 100% Grenache, 100% Syrah, or they're going to be complementary. And the complementary ones are things that we target for elemental. And so this is basically something that we do every August. So it's about 2 years of aging. We're going back and tasting all the wines and sort of getting, and we do this blend right before we bottle, because our whole intent is to make this wine seamless and represent the palate and the sort of the hedonistic pleasure of the family. And so the idea is we do this blend directly before bottling, so we capture that moment into that bottle. And the bulk of this wine typically is always going to be in neutral oak, whether it's French or American will differ, but it's still going to be a barrel that's at least 4 or 5 years old. And we've been doing a lot of work with puncheons, which are the larger shaped barrels. And so we'll start those in the Syrah program. And once they've been used multiple vintages, they'll be being brought down to Grenache and Mourvedre and things like that for elemental. So the idea here is because we can build tannin and opulence through using Syrah, and we don't have to use a lot of oak.
Outstanding. Well, Michael, if you and you've got the wines with you tonight, I hope you'll continue to taste with us and make some comments. I got some questions for you throughout the night.
You bet. My pleasure.
How's your wine showing in those still tasting vials tonight?
Good.
Good. We're going to move into wine number 4, our Z Syrah. And the Kimsey estate is right down the street from you guys right there. Correct, Michael?
Yeah, so Ballard Canyon AVA is if you look at that little map you're showing, it almost looks like the shape of a real heart of a human. And Kimsey is on the western flank of Ballard Canyon. We're sort of on the southern border of Ballard Canyon. Then you've got some great folks like Honada, Beckman, Rusak, and Stoltman, which are a little bit more the northern hemisphere there. And it's funny because it's all a very small distance between all of us. It's like probably 1 or 2 miles. So it's an extremely small AVA for the actual area, and for California probably. But Kimsey and I both get a little bit more of what we call the Buellton breeze. So we get a little bit more hit off of the winds that are coming off the Pacific from the west, compared to Stoltman, Beckman, and Rusak and Onada, because they're higher elevation, and the way the mountains are sort of tilted a little bit, they're not getting a direct full-on breeze. And so we actually, I think Kimsey and I both have rows that are in similar orientation to maximize that airflow down the rows, so we can reduce issues of mildew and stuff like that.
Cool. We've had the Kimsey family on our Zoom in the past, and it's always great to be able to chat with the vintners, and thanks for being here, Michael. And it's just a really beautiful vineyard. It's been overseen by Matt Dees, the winemaker, and Matt makes Honada as well, and this is under his hand. Beautiful place. Beautiful wines. Hope you're enjoying those. And we moved from Chardonnay to Pinot Noir to 2 beautiful Rhone-inspired wines. Now we'll move into Cabernet Bordeaux style blend called Crown Point. Crown Point's number 5, if you're tasting along with us. Crown Point is part of an extensive ranch. It's quite large. I think 2,000 or so acres. Not all of it planted. Very little of it planted. In fact, when you talk about total plantings, I think it's less than 200 acres planted, but pretty sizable estate. And it goes from the top of those mountains all the way down to the road at the bottom of the picture here. Here's the team. Simon Faury, and I know I mispronounce his name every time, and he always makes fun of me because I can never get it right. But I hope that was pretty close, Simon. Philippe Melka, I don't get that one wrong, and Michel Roland, who we've just crazily run into in several different countries in our travels. We were in Argentina once, we were in Bordeaux once, we were in Tuscany once. Seems like we're chasing his tailpipes every time we're coming into town. The guy flies all over the world to consult on the wines, and Crown Point is trying to really go for it. They have some really unique soils with an amazing combination of geology, as does all of Santa Barbara. And here is the blend that we're looking at in this wine: 92 Cab, 3 Merlot, 2 Petit Verdot, 2 Cab Franc, 1 Malbec. It was harvested, let's see, let me make sure we're looking at 2016 as the vintage on this wine. So harvested in 2016, but 26 months in 70% new French oak barrels. This creates a pretty extravagant wine, and with a lot of talent and a lot of tools. They're putting it together and really trying to put Happy Canyon on the map, and not just make a great Santa Barbara wine, but make a great California Cabernet. And I think they've certainly achieved that. This wine is dense and rich, layered, and delicious. And I love to use this in blind tastings and get people to try to figure out where it's from. And it's always well appreciated, enjoyed, and really pretty tremendous. Santa Barbara has grown up a lot. We've been around since 1995, and certainly there's been some different iterations in time, certain different things that have happened. And Michael, when was Larner Vineyard started officially?
So Larner Vineyard was sort of in the second wave of, I would say, development in the valley. You have the early pioneers with like Sanford, Longoria. These guys that planted, late 70s into 80s. And then I think in like, what was it, like 84, 86, there was like 13 to maybe less than 20 wineries for sure. And then there was a sort of trickle that went on. And then it wasn't until about, I would say, 1990 that there was a fairly large boom for a couple different reasons. I mean, political reasons. The tax breaks on equestrian properties went away. So land started flipping. Agriculture is very dominant in the northern part of Santa Barbara County. So vineyards were sort of the natural fit, luckily, because it kept it from urbanization ultimately. But so there was a fairly large boom, and we were sort of on the tail end of that. And we planted our vineyard in 1999. And I know just before that, it was Stoltman. I think it was like 97, 98. You had Beckman being planted. You had Honada being planted in the early 90s. So Ballard itself saw most of its development in the early 90s, as well as most of Santa Barbara. And I would say that there's probably a third phase happening right about now, where you're having another boom of planting. And it's interesting because the diversity of Santa Barbara County has always been strong, and the third wave is really embracing that. We're seeing a lot of interesting varieties come in that haven't been here before, but also similar varieties grown in different parts of Santa Barbara that have been here before, and people sort of pushing those boundaries a little bit. So it's really interesting.
Well, I pulled up Santa Barbara Vintners Association's map, take a look at the wineries, and there's different ways to do that. You could go by AVA or by trail. And I'm not sure how comprehensive this is today, but you could just span through here and see a lot of new things that maybe weren't here 10 years ago. And I'm really enjoying to see this latest burst of new ideas and energy and growth and diversity, and I'd say that Santa Barbara's getting close to pushing up against limits as well, right, Michael? You got certainly a little bit more difficulty in coming out and just planting vines anywhere you want. You're going to have to go through a permitting process, and it's become quite extensive and may even hit some limitations. I mean, those have always been there, but it's getting tougher and tougher. And so you almost get to a point where there's like a moratorium on any further growth. And I'm not sure, maybe that's already the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think the county's permit process is no longer an impediment; it's a roadblock. And when you're scrolling through this website, I would say a handful of these producers are, don't own physical land. They're buying fruit from different vineyards and from different AVAs, and are basically making their wine in commercial centers and industrial areas. It's fun, it's hip, it's got a vibe to it, but at the same time, the traditional like Chateau Maison where you can go visit is sort of a dying breed in Santa Barbara. I think those that are there, and there's not going to be a lot more of those coming down the pike with time, mainly because of some of these roadblocks that we ran into through the permitting, and other land use issues that have plagued us in the last couple of years. But Ian, I don't know if you can pull up a. They have the AVA maps, but maybe you can get the more general one that has all the AVAs on the one map there.
Okay, let me see.
But I'll tell you, I was president of the Vintners Association for about 4 years, and it is a very dynamic region compared to other parts of. Yeah, you can look at Santa Barbara County AVA. It's a very dynamic region compared to our other counterparts in California because of the diversity of not just the varieties that we grow, but also the diversity of the ownership of winemakers. We have, when I was president, there was 189 wineries that are bonded in Santa Barbara County. And when we polled our membership to look at case production, because at that time, that's how we did our dues, over 50% of the producers in that 189 were making like less than 3,000 cases of wine. So you have a large amount of small producers in a concentrated area. So it's very boutique, very authentic experience for the folks that come up and visit us. But it's not a rippling effect that you see go out through other parts of the world like you see in Napa and Sonoma, because the marketing power is still coming down to the single owner, the single person. Whenever we looked at the applications coming in, it was, who's the CEO? One person. Who's the marketing director? Same person. Who's the contact? Same person, right? So it's like, it's we always jokingly, it's like, we're herding cats down there. But, the idea is that that allows that authenticity to be expressed because you have wonderful winemakers making small batches to really maximize the expression of those vineyards, those sites, and really amplify the diversification that you see. And the reason I asked you to bring up that map is if you're looking from the west to the east, it's really a triangular shaped valley. And you can see from the vineyards, well illustrated. And that's because of our onshore flow that comes from the west. The Pacific is basically sandwiched from the San Rafaels that are running diagonal on that north and eastern border. And then the transverse mountain range, which is our southern border, which we call the San Ynez range, which actually connects. And so you have this triangular shaped valley and sort of opening up to the Pacific. And that Pacific is that drives all of our weather. Every day we're getting a breeze that's coming off that Pacific inland. And it's very different than what's being experienced by Santa Barbara, the Gaviota Coast. And it's very different from some of our north-south running valleys like Napa and Sonoma, where there you're looking at gradations, especially when they're coming off of bodies of water that are bays. Ours are coming directly off the Pacific Ocean, so you have much cooler currents, and we have a huge diurnal shift. If you were to look at my weather station, it drives you nuts, because every day it says it's going to rain, because it's basically seeing that there's fog going to roll in, so it's predicting humidity and moisture. But it's because the diurnal shift also is happening, where you're going from 80s and 90s down to like 50s and 40s. But so if you're further west, you're going to stay cooler all day long and cooler at night. If you're further east, you're going to get hotter all during the day and still drop into those cool temperatures at night. So everybody in Santa Barbara is blessed with natural acidity, which is, I think, something you'll see in all of these wines. And that's awesome that Ian was able to bring those, because you'll see that. But at the same time, you'll also see that folks on the west, like Bruno, are making Pinot, or, you got Simon making, or Simone making, beautiful cabs on the east. And you're thinking to yourself, how can a region do that And it's because of that temperature gradation as you go further inland, goes from basically Pinot Noir Burgundian varieties on the west, the central part to Rhone, and then you have like the Bordeaux varieties showing up on the eastern tip. And so we have three distinct regions of the world as you travel this 34-mile triangular valley.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and I loved your preface and how it could also be challenging, to run the appellation, and when pretty much all the wineries are owned by winemakers and they're making less than 3,000 cases, it's really hard to drill down and get a lot of involvement because they're all running with their heads cut off. And I'm also seeing some interesting trends emerging where, especially amplified in a vintage like 2000, when a lot of the state of California had really big smoke issues. So the backup financial plan was to go to areas that didn't have as much fire and smoke damage and make a supplemental amount of wine. And I'm imagining that Santa Barbara wineries and vineyards had no problem selling all their fruit in 2000 vintage because of the needs of other parts of California to fill in those gaps. I'm hearing about wineries in Napa Valley not only making Santa Barbara wines for the first time in 2000, but I'm even hearing about Napa Valley coming down and starting to acquire vineyards in pretty big ways, and that'll change the landscape pretty quick as well.
And I think that's what I was referring to, that third wave, where you essentially have, there's quite a bit of development, and the interesting thing is it's development of people that we may not have direct face-to-face contact with, but we think ultimately are properties that are going to sell. They're going to go straight to Napa. They're going to go straight to Sonoma. Because in a way, the fires, unfortunately to their detriment, damaged their crop, but introduced people to Santa Barbara's fruit in an enticing way, because they realize it's a great value, great fruit quality, and so we're seeing locally rising of grape prices. That spawns the development, that spawns the interest. Say, hey, wait a minute, I can get X amount per acre. It's worth me planting this now. So obviously, I think that's, it's not in the past. I feel like the 90s was a stock market growth, where here we're looking at this third phase being something that's like, wait a minute, Santa Barbara's fruit is now being prized much more as a fruit, as selling for potential winemaking area. So I think that's what's spawning the growth. So the interesting thing being, for myself, being sort of in that middle of the two generations, to say, okay, how's this going to play out? Because the genius is that authenticity of the small producer. But if we're going to start seeing our fruit prices rise, even the small guys are going to get squeezed a little bit.
For sure. And the elevation of bottle costs and things like that will change, the tourist patterns and the visitors, and then you'll start seeing taster rooms charging a lot of money for tastings, and it becomes a different type of an animal. But it is part of the business is adapting, and I also see wineries going in the opposite direction, where they're breaking away from norms and making products that have like whole cluster fermentation, and they're doing carbonic type of fermentations that allow for gentler, softer, fresher wines to come into the marketplace. And there's really a big kind of boom in the almost garagiste style wines that are, $20, $25, $30 a bottle out of Santa Barbara. And those seem to be taking a pretty big move at this moment. And I'm not sure if any of you have tried any or have any that you'd like to mention, but wines like I Love You Bunches is really doing quite well in the marketplace. That's from the Stoltman family, and these are wines that I think I'm able to buy the 2020 or 2021 wines pretty quickly here. I mean, they're really coming out pretty fast, and that's the kind of turn and burn model. Because one of the biggest expenses in the wine industry is, how expensive it is to hold the inventory and age it and put it in wood for 2 years and all that good stuff. And if you can cut out some of those costs, you can make wines that have a lower price entry point.
I just had that Benjamin Silver Syrah. I'd gotten that.
Cool. I just talked to him today.
Oh, you did. I remember that was one of my wins.
From a contest. Oh, very nice.
Yes, I've gotten several bottles of different years to be able to do a vertical tasting.
Nice. Well, Lisa is one of our largest charitable donors for our wine events, so she's got some really interesting, cool stuff, and that's going to be great. Those are going to be great stories to tell. All right, Toe, anything else you guys want to talk about?
I was just telling my friend a story about tasting a Benjamin Silver Cab Franc way back in the day. I can't remember when that was, when they had a Cab Franc like festival tasting at the Union Hotel up in Los Alamos. And then like a few years later, that movie that we won't mention the name of came out, and the vineyard that he was getting the Cab Franc from was grafted over to Pinot Noir. And I was like, oh my God, that was the best Cab Franc vineyard in the whole valley. So.
Yeah, and that's another interesting thing. Some of these guys that have been around for a long time are starting to, move into retirement age. And
sure.
What's the gentleman's name that made great Cab Franc forever? Blues Cuvée and stuff.
Daniel Gears? Oh no, I know what you're talking about.
Blues was Longoria.
Longoria, yeah, he just sold his winery, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that could eventually change the mix of what's happening there too, and maybe Cab Franc becomes a little less important because some of its major,
Sure, and Fiddlehead sold recently as well. So
yeah, Fiddlehead, that was a big transaction.
Yeah.
And that'll impact a lot of small producers that bought fruit from Fiddlehead. That'll have a really big change in very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So a dynamic world we live in this moment, and Santa Barbara is certainly a big part of the wine world, and it has certainly established itself as such an important destination. I love the food thing that's happening up there too, Michael. So many good restaurants.
And we're pretty stoked. We've been hearing rumors that there might be some sort of Thomas Keller affiliation with the auberge that's opening up at Manny's Tavern. It's purely speculation, so don't quote me on that, but we're pretty stoked because there has been, I would say in the last 2 years, despite the pandemic, there's been some great restaurants that have opened. Some that are steakhouse oriented, like Coast Range and Sear and Solvang.
Yeah. I haven't been to Coast Range yet, but I've heard it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's dynamite. I actually just got to dine there about a week ago, and showing everything was gorgeous. And there's some beautiful Italian food between Luca's setting his kitchen, and then he opened Nella and Los Olivos. So word's out. I mean, there's some culinary interest coming into the valley, which is good. There's it's spawning a little bit more opportunity for better dining, which is always welcome, I think. It does drive up the steak price. Coast Range is about $65 a fillet, so that's LA prices in our book. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's going to happen too, and I don't think the price of steak is any cheaper in Santa Barbara than it is in LA. So we're seeing that craziness, but really good quality. I heard restaurant Bell's maybe got a Michelin star in the last year, and Industry Eats or Industrial Eats, always an incredible place to go. I was there just a couple of weekends ago, and there was a line out the door. It was just booming. So really a great food scene. The hotels are at all-time highs in prices. I can't believe some of the prices these places are getting now. I
And the
remember,
little hole in the walls that never would have had that price. Yeah, on little
yeah,
side streets off. Yeah. And they
it's
absolutely.
insanity. I used to think of Santa Barbara as being a pretty reasonable place to go travel, but I think Hawaii might be cheaper. And I'm not just joking about that. It's you can go to Costco and get a trip to Hawaii for less than a couple of days at a nice hotel in Santa Barbara. But it is an amazing appellation. I'm so happy that you could join us tonight, Michael, to chit chat. Any any new things that you think we should know about, because we don't have our ear completely on the ground there. Obviously, the Thomas
Well,
Keller possibility is pretty cool.
yeah, no, and I have to say this because I'm so proud of my wife. But Forbes just did a piece on places to visit, and they mentioned San Ynez Valley. But of course, the cool thing is the stock photo they used was the Los Olivos General Store, which is my wife's brainchild. So proud of her to get that recognition. But I mean, I think what we've been alluding to is that it's onward and upwards for us. I mean, I feel like the culinary scene, there are enough hotels, but I think there can be more. And the county is considering, and I've been involved with some of the county planning farm stays. So connecting the agricultural part to people visiting. Right now, they're looking at about 6 room capacity, no more than 15 people. And there can be some food service associated with that, which would be huge for us, ginormous for us.
That would be amazing. It's
Yeah,
like agriturismo in Italy, right? That would be a
exactly.
fantastic
Yeah. So,
idea.
and I fully embrace that and excited that they actually mentioned this word at a county meeting, and they're actually looking at it, studying it. That does mean it's going to take some time, but if it's on the books, it's in the works, which is pretty exciting. And that would just, I think, really further that educational experience for anybody who wants to come within a 3-hour radius to come and visit and be able to stay and see the agricultural world that we live in. It's amazing. It's a gorgeous valley.
Spectacular. Well, that's good news, man. I love that. Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight for another session of Zoom into Wine. And make sure you get up there and visit the Larner family. And thanks for being on the Zoom with me, buddy. And your wine is delicious, as always, and we thank you. And to everybody in Santa Barbara, we're big fans down here, and we love to support the local product. And it's great when it's good, too. You can have some homey love, but when the wines aren't very good, you forget about them pretty quickly. But Santa Barbara's making some of the best wines in the state, and I love showing off what's happening, and also some of the excitement that's happening as well. And I've been kind of on a little bit of a roll, kind of digging down deeper, kind of reacquainting myself with Santa Barbara again, and reacquainting myself even with Los Angeles, because we've been cooped up for 2 years. And now you go out and tool around and see so much creation. That's what I love about California and our need to develop. I mean, the cost of time is just so high. We have so little of it, and so we turn things around pretty quickly, and it's happening right now. You can feel it, you can see it. Things are getting cleaner and cleared out and fixed. And maybe not as fast as we all want, but I can see it happening. Have you seen some of the parks in LA, Lisa? They used to be full of tents, and you couldn't even walk across the grass. Now you go to even MacArthur Park is like
I have missed that. Perhaps I haven't made it to
it's a
Beaudry.
sparkling jewel. MacArthur Park is a sparkling jewel. Are you kidding?
That's fantastic. Apparently, they have not made it to Beaudry and Third.
Yeah, and it's certainly been, I think the local politics here got the hell beat out of them so badly over what's happening with homelessness that they're really taking some aggressive action, fixing some things up. And now they're probably getting some pushback because what are happening to all these homeless people, I don't know. But the parks are looking good, and streets now we're seeing massive repaving of the streets and the freeways, much to anyone who's trying to drive anywhere and seeing a freeway closed. But there's a lot of good news in the pipeline, so lots to be optimistic about. And all we need is the price of gas to come down a little bit more, and then we can start to complain about other things. But I'm really happy to have you all here, and thanks for joining me tonight. Zoom into Wine, we try to connect all the dots, and Michael, thanks for connecting Santa Barbara with us tonight.
Thanks so much.
Bye, guys. Check out our calendar. We have some really cool stuff at Zoom into Wine. And we have a couple of cool Stars tastings coming up. Stars of Italy is next week. Stars of Santa Lucia Highlands actually went out nationwide in an article, and we got customers from all over the country, and we sold that event out. 80 people is our max, and we're at 80 people for Santa Lucia Highlands, so super excited about that. We have a Barolo event in Los Angeles that everybody should be paying attention to. Barolo and Barbaresco are coming, 140 producers, 200 wines, DOP Foods will be there. These are the designated products of origin of Italy, so they're bringing the cheeses and the pastas and some educational components, but also feeding everyone very well. It'll be at the Hotel Intercontinental, right next to the 110 freeway, beautiful property, and it will be a very large event with a lot of people. And if you're into Barolo and Barbaresco, and who shouldn't be, this will be a place to be for sure. It's on the 29th of April, actually, 29th of April. That's a Friday night, and tickets are available on the website, winela.com. You can grab them there, and I would highly recommend you do. It will sell out. Tomorrow night, we have a sold-out Korean barbecue dinner event. It's really going to be fun, and we continue to create some really fun stuff to get together around. So peace out. Have a good night, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Ciao.